A group of villages in mid-Devon share the same name, or are a variation on a theme, and one of these is Kingsnimpton, the subject of today's profile.
Almost heaven, West Virginia.
In the area where mid-Devon becomes North Devon, about 20 miles from Barnstaple, you find Kingsnimpton, Georgenimpton and Bishopsnimpton, which, when first recorded in the Domesday Book, were called Nymet or Nymed. It wasn't until the 13th century that Nymet was prefixed with the word king, when King John entrusted the manor to one Roger de la Zeus to hold in safekeeping for him, and it entered the records as Kingsnimpton. Similarly, the village now known as Bishopsnimpton was held in trust by the Bishop of Exeter, hence its name today. Now, the word Nymet is an old name for a river, and could have applied equally to either the Tor, the Bray, or the Mole, which runs at the foot of the hill on which the village of Kingsnimpton is sited. It's clear from 13th century records that King John's interest in the area was primarily for the hunting, which this part of Devon afforded the monarch, and to this day, in the wooded valleys which surround the village, there is fine hunting, fishing and shooting to be had. Kingsnimpton is, as I said, about 20 miles from Barnstaple and 5 miles from the market town of South Molton. We are in what is probably best known through the books of Williamson as Tarker the Otter country. The village itself is a collection of some 120 houses, mostly old and thatched, and nearly all listed conservation buildings. There's about 300 people live in the parish, and I met Fred Eyre, who's the chairman of the parish council, on my arrival in the village, and asked him to tell us a bit more about his home, Kingsnimpton.
We lost our shop about 6 months ago, I think. That closed down, so we haven't got a shop. We get the papers, the new daily newspapers, and the bread we get it at the pub. We get a school, very nice school, and we go to church and a chapel, and I don't know, we haven't got much other things of a lot of interest yet. We're pretty well served with buses now at the moment. We've had a new venture start up with a new bus running every day, 2 or 3 times a day. And they got one bus on Thursdays to South Molton and a bus on Fridays to to Barnstaple and Exeter.
3 of us that live in and near the village heard the Queen's speech in 1984 when it was decided that buses should be denationalised. And we thought, well, this would be an opportunity for us to create a bus service in this area of North Devon if it were needed. So we carried out a survey and we found that there were about 2 buses a week from Kingsnimpton, and therefore most people had to have 2 cars, one for Daddy and one for Mummy to go and get tea when she ran out of tea, or take a child off to the dentist if he got toothache. So after an investigation, we got a 12-seater minibus, and we got permission to run it, and we now serve the village 3 times a day with a bus 5 days a week.
This is the church hall that we're in now, you see, but of course they're raising money to try to build a new hall, which, we hope will be all right.
And in fact, they've raised rather a lot of money, haven't they?
A lot of money, yes.
Margaret Wright is the chairperson, I think that's the right description, of the Village Hall Committee. Now, tell me, why did you need to raise money in the first place?
Well, we've got a lot of clubs in Kingsnimpton, and a lot of the dances and social events are beginning to go outside the village because we wanted better facilities. And so we decided we'd like to have a parish hall of our own in Kingsnimpton.
So that's going to be entirely separate to the church hall?
Yes, that's right. Yes, we've got a new site next to the playing field, which will help to incorporate the playing field as well.
Now, you're like the gentleman I spoke to about his bus company earlier on. You make it sound terribly easy. You've got a site and you're going to put up a parish hall there. But life isn't quite that straightforward, is it?
No, it's not simple. We've got a very good team of workers, and it's by no means my effort that's done it, but a team of people in Kingsnimpton, and farmers have helped us by allowing us to hold events on their land.
Well, what sort of sum of money is involved then in putting up a new village hall?
When we started, we aimed and said we would try and raise £20,000 in 2 years. And we've now got over 17,000, and the 2 years isn't up yet.
So you've been raising £1,000 a month?
Very nearly, yes, very nearly.
So how on earth did you manage to do that?
We've had a variety of events, from jumble sales and whist drives up to country fairs and gas ups, fun days with sponsored walks, collected all waste paper. The farmers have been very good in keeping sheep for us on a sheep scheme.
How does that work?
We buy a flock of sheep and send individual sheep out to different farms, and the farmers keep them free of charge until they've lambed. And then there's a special market held for these club sheep in South Molton, and we have the profits for the whole fund.
And another thing I heard about was something called safari suppers. What on earth are those?
Yes, we had a very successful safari supper back in June, and we happened to have a very beautiful evening. And we have the first course at one farm and move on for our main course to another home, and on again for our sweets, and on again to finish in a barn large enough to hold everyone at one go for our finish the evening with some music.
So you're well on target for the £20,000. When do you hope to start building?
We are waiting now with all our fingers crossed to hear if the councils will let us have a grant. We have to apply to both the District Council and the Community Council of Devon, and we're still waiting now to hear their verdict.
In fact, North Devon District Council have grant-aided the Village Hall project with a grant of £20,667, which is the largest grant ever awarded to such a project by the North Devon District Council. And dependent on a Devon County Council meeting in mid-February and the size of the grant coming through the Community Council of Devon, it's hoped to start work on the new hall next April. So it just goes to show that if you have the energy, imagination and work hard on a project, and this one will cost £72,000, you too could be in the money.
I work all night, I work all day to pay the bills I have to pay. Ain't it sad? Money, 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 must be funny in the rich man's world.
Now, what about the people that live in the village? There's a population of some 300, I think.
Well, that's the parish. You say that there's not so many people in the village itself, really, now these days, because we've got tremendous lot of holiday cottages. We've got 10 or 11 cottages standing empty at the moment, in fact.
So owned by people from outside the
Yes,
parish?
Yes, they come from up country and buy them up. And then they come down on their holidays nowadays.
What about the rest of the people, though, the people that actually live here? What sort of things are they doing for a living?
Well, they work high temperature engineering into South Molton, and then some work to the chipboard, you see. They've got to go to South Molton or Barnstable. Some people travel to Barnstable.
And what about farming? That's quite important.
Oh yes, but they don't, there's no employment on farming these days, not very much.
Because of the mechanisation?
That's right, that's right.
So what about the housing here? What sort of housing is it? I mean, describe the buildings. Are they old buildings? Are
Oh,
they...
some are very old, you see. And the majority of the council houses are fairly old. But they've got several, what have we got? About, I think at the moment about 12, 14 council houses. That includes 2 bungalows. And the remainder of the houses are some of them are old, and there have been some new ones put up recently. Some bungalows, quite nice.
If you could sum it up, what sort of place is Kings Nimpton to live in? A friendly place?
Very, very friendly, very nice little village. Very nice and quiet. Very nice.
When I was speaking to Fred Eyre, the chairman of the parish council, he told me that farming was quite an important activity, industry around the village of Kings Nimpton. And I've got with me now a farmer, John Manning. John, do you farm outside the village?
Yeah, just outside the village, yes.
What sort of farming is it that's going on around here?
Well, partly dairying, partly mixed farming.
It's good dairy country.
Yes, yeah, grow plenty of grass.
Fred was telling us about some of the village facilities that you've got here in Kings Nimpton. What about other things? I mean, a post office he didn't mention. Do you have a post office?
Oh, yes, we have a very good post office in the village. Mr. and Mrs. Francis have run it ever since I was a nipper anyway. And there's quite a bit of trade there.
How old is Mr. Francis?
Well, I guess he'd be well over 80.
Important facility for the village, do you think, the post office?
Oh, yes, because in our village is quite a considerable number of older people who, if there was no post office there, would have to go to town to get their pension and what have you. And quite a lot of farmers use it, you know, for getting their stamps and what have you. Save going to town. You let the postman have it in the morning, and he takes it back and gets it stamped up, brings it back again the next morning. So that was a great service.
Let's stay with the subject of farming and father and son. Farming team, I suppose you'd describe them as, Jim and Lloyd Govier. Jim, first of all, you were born in the parish, weren't you?
Yes.
I'm not going to ask you how long ago that was, but what about Kings Nimpton as a village and as a parish for you? How would you describe it?
Well, I think they've changed a lot since I was going to school. I used to go to school in this very room here, and a lot of the youngsters have drifted away. There isn't nothing near the number of children here today as there was 50 years ago or more.
You've given your age away now, haven't you?
Oh.
So tell me, when you were at school, can you remember how many children there were there?
Between 40 and 50, I think.
And they would have come from the district all
yeah.
around here?
Yes, yes.
So what about you? How would you get into school, and how long would that trip take you?
Well, we used to walk. Well, we were only about a mile and a half away, so sometimes perhaps half an hour and sometimes hour and a half.
Depending on the weather or how keen you were on getting to school?
How keen we were on getting it, that's the truth of it, yes.
And were you keen or not?
Not very keen, no.
Now what about your son? Let me turn to him. Lloyd, what about you? Did you go to the school here as well?
Yes, yes.
When you were a lad at school, how big was the school then?
Ooh, between 30 and 40 then.
So it dropped a bit since your dad's time?
Yes, yes.
Now you've got children. Did they follow in your father's footsteps and go to the school as well?
Yes, yes.
So once you'd left school here and once your children left school, where would they go on to?
Chumley. Comprehensive at Chumley.
And how far away is that?
About 4 miles.
Now, what about the village from a younger man's point of view? I mean, what sort of things are going on here to interest people living in the village?
Well, not a lot, really.
I don't mean the scandal, you understand.
Oh, none of that here.
There's no scandal?
Oh, no.
I'm going to go away then. Now, I was thinking in terms of organisations and groups and activities, what sort of things go on?
Well, there is a youth club at the moment, but not a lot after that.
Staying on the subject of the school, I was talking to the Goviers a short while ago about the school. I've got with me now Evelyn Waldron. Well, Evelyn, you were cooking at the school for a long, long time, weren't you? How long was that?
Yes, I was a cook for 29 years at the school. I started the kitchen and I finished it.
So it's a job you obviously enjoyed doing.
Oh, yes, yes, very much so.
Now, we've heard about the number of children there sort of declining over the years. When you left the school, how many children were there then?
Somewhere in the region of 40 and over, perhaps 44, I think.
So still quite a reasonable number.
I think there's still about 40 there now.
And what about staff? How many staff?
Well, they have two, the headmistress and the assistant teacher. And the meals now come from South Molton, and one lady serves the meals and washes up, I presume.
So when you retired, they stopped cooking meals on the premises, did
Yes,
they?
yes.
Glorious food, hot sausage and mustard.
Now, I was told before I met you that somewhat modestly you won't tell me about how good you were at doing your job, but 29 years taught you something about cooking, didn't it? Come on, tell us about that.
Well, I suppose really, I mean, when I represented the whole of the Southwest, from Dorset to Cornwall, at Hotel Olympia, I'm not quite sure, but I think it was 1980, and we had to go out to, there was a part in Hotel Olympia for school meals, and the finals for the Southwest was held at Taunton, and out of, I think it was 55 schools, Kings Nimpton won it and went to Hotel Olympia.
And how did you do once you got up there?
Well, I placed in 7, you know, the final 7, but it went to the Midlands, the final, you know, the first place. So I was in the final 7, but not any higher. I don't know really. It was fascinating. It was marvelous experience.
What about cooking for yourself now? Do you still enjoy that, or after 29 years of doing it for 40 or 50 other people, have you got fed up with it?
Yes, I still enjoy cooking. I think I enjoy cooking for other people, you know, sort of entertaining other people.
It's still in the blood.
Yes, yes.
Food! Once again, food! Fabulous food! Glorious food!
As well as farming, and there's a local pig and trout farm near the village, the population of Kingsnimpton depends on holiday-let cottages for income. And there's also a one-man business in the village, making rugby scrummage machines. That's the machine which a rugby pack can scrum against, and the machine is exported as far afield as Australia, New Zealand, Canada and Japan. But what else is going on in the village? Pam Down told me about the village groups and organisations.
Well, there's quite a lot, really, but we sort of work quietly in our own ways that not everybody knows it's going on. But I can list quite a few. We've got the Kingsnimpton Parish Hall Fundraising Committee. There's a Play and Field Committee. There's the Kingsnimpton School Parent Teachers Association, which is very active. And, of course, behind the scenes, the school governors. There's a Mother and Baby Club. And then Cholmondeley and District Young Farmers Club, which also covers Kingsnimpton area. We've got a youth club and the Women's Fellowship, a Women's Institute. And at the pub, there's the darts, skittles and pool team. There's also whist drives. And of course the church and the chapel themselves.
Well, Pam Down mentioned the pub, and Sue Padden, you're the landlady at the pub.
Yes, that's right.
Now, you can tell me quietly, because we're just by ourselves, do the village drink a lot?
Quite a bit, yes. The local villagers, yeah.
Good for trade.
Oh, yes.
Now, we heard about some of the things. You've got a darts team at the pub and a skittles team. Is this something that you're sort of anxious to build up?
We're getting quite a lot going in the village now. We've just started bingo and whist. We had it this week and it was very popular and brought a lot of people into the pub and into the village. It was quite a success and we're going to carry that on.
You've not been in the village very long?
No, we've only been here since March.
Since March, very new to the village. How did you find you were received when you moved here?
Very well. The villagers are very, very friendly and made us very welcome.
Was that true for other newcomers? Well, Ron and Janice Cook moved to Kingsnimpton from Barnstaple, and I asked them how they found the move from town to country.
Well, we did live in the countryside as such. We were about 3 miles out of Barnstaple in a little village called Sherwell. But we moved up here. I've got a brother farming here on a dairy farm. And we came up here socially quite a bit before we moved up here. And even before we moved up, we found it such a fantastic place to come to socially. People are very, very friendly. And I've got 3 daughters. The oldest one's nearly 19. And we were quite concerned about how she might settle down, really, at the time, because she was at the sort of age when it's difficult for a girl to move, perhaps. And but all 3 of them have settled down really well.
Fred Eyre again, the chairman of the parish council. Fred, if you could sum up or tell us ways in which village life has changed, what do you think would be the chief change, or what's been the biggest change that you've seen during your lifetime here?
After the war, you see, you got more machinery come along, and then eventually horses went off the land to start with, and well, then you done away with your blacksmith and all that sort of business, you see.
Because like every other village, it used to have the tradespeople working here.
Exactly. And then you could buy the shoes and that cheaper in the shops. They were machine made. You seen, you'd done away with your cobblers. There used to be 2 or 3 cobblers in the village. They've been done away with.
What other tradespeople were working here? I mean, we've heard there isn't a shop here at the moment. Did there used to be a baker?
No, we've never had a baker, but we used to have 3 shops. Yes. We had 3, but they just dwindled away until it was left with 1.
And the blacksmith you've mentioned. What other tradespeople?
2 wheelwrights, and they finished the same thing. You see, that finished them when the tractors come on the farms. You see, they weren't wanted.
Now, what about mains water or electricity coming to the village? Can you remember that? And what was life like before electricity?
No, it was all right. It was happy enough, you know, but you'd got to put up with oil lights and candles and all that sort of thing. It's a great boon when it did come, you see. Of course, we had water over years. It used to be fed with a windmill from up high up, you see, the gravitation. And then that failed, and then they put in the mains for us, brought it up the hill, you say, from the bottom.
Would you describe Kings Nimpton as an isolated sort of place?
Not reasonably, but a lot of people say it is off the beaten track a bit, but I never look at it like that. They pass through, they can pass through to go to South Molton or Cholmondeley or anywhere like that. There's more life in it than what they think there is, I think. Life's pretty good. You've got to accept what you've got. You see, if you're happy in the village and all that, and you can get work and get around a bit, you can live here. They all manage to live here, what come here, what want work, you know. They all manage to live and they live happy.
And it sounds like prospects for the future are quite good with your new village hall.
Probably that might wake it up a bit, you know. Sort of bring it out of the doldrums, if there is any doldrums. You know.